Welcome back to day 2 of the Together at the Table Summit. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jenny Howell, and I'm on faculty here at Baylor, and I direct the Theology, Ecology, and Food Justice program here. And as a complete self-promotion, I'd like to point y'all to our table over here in the corner, and you can find out more information about this program, this master's degree program here at Baylor when you have a chance. Thanks for coming back. This is a great crowd, and I can promise you that you're in for a treat today. To get things started today, I first want to start by expressing my gratitude to the Baylor Collaborative on Hunger and Poverty, and to Jeremy. Where is he? Hi. When I started to dream up this little program, the idea that studying food justice could be an academic discipline here at Baylor, there was no greater advocate for me than Jeremy. For those of you who know Jeremy, this will not surprise you, is a big idea kind of guy. And when you spend time with Jeremy, you begin to understand that your dreams and the possibilities that are before you might actually be possible. And in fact, maybe we should all be dreaming a little bit bigger. And so in those early days when Jeremy and I were meeting over coffees and at our houses and thinking through what this could look like, unbeknownst to me, he was advertising and celebrating this vision all across Baylor campus in places that I didn't even know existed. And within a few months of starting this program, I'm suddenly on a golf cart with the Nobel Prize winning executive director of the World Food Program and Jeremy, where Jeremy is telling him about this program here at Baylor. And so I do want to express my gratitude to you and say how much fun it is to work with you. And now that I've worked with Jeremy for several years, what I've really come to learn is how hard his staff works. The Baylor Collaborative consists of a staff that is incredible. And so let me personally, as your partner, express my gratitude to you, Grace, and to Jill, and to Tasha, and to Keisha, and Elijah, and Courtney, and Kaiser, who's really good at driving golf carts, and all the rest of you that I didn't name. You are really a valuable part of our community, and it's just critical to have partners to dream together, and I'm really fortunate that you are who you are. So thank you. So issues of food scarcity, hunger, poverty, these are what we call in the academy wicked problems. They're challenges that B-Chip describes as issues that no single sector can solve. And perhaps now more than ever, this is a time for collaboration. I'm looking across this room and I'm seeing people from all different parts of the effort. We've got people on the ground working to bring food to those who are hungry. We have researchers, we have students. Students, if you're here, if you're a Baylor student, I'm gonna ask you, would you stand up? Please, stand up, Baylor students. We have a next generation coming up, and here at Baylor, they're getting a chance to ask about these questions in a holistic way, in a way that brings all of the challenges to the table together, and I'm really lucky that I get to do life with a lot of these folks. Solutions to these problems that we're facing are going to be coming fundamentally from the problems that we're in. I want to say that again. Solutions that we need to find to address things like poverty and hunger, those solutions are going to be found in the problems that we are facing. Now, my program is called the Theology, Ecology, and food justice program. And that claim is Ecology 101. Ecology is nothing other than the study of relationships. And we know in our studies of ecology that it is when two different forms of life come together in a collaboration where more life flourishes. We know that when organisms are in webs of connection, they have greater propensity towards resiliency when hard times come. This is a really great principle to apply to us. It's not just about the soil, though it is. It's about us. This is a time and a space in our nation when we need to come together and to collaborate. Today, I'm really excited to introduce to you a group of scholars who have spent their lives thinking about the challenges that come with hunger, poverty, land degradation, and how all of those things go together. I'm really excited to share these folks with you up here on the stage because not only do I respect madly their work, but they are also my friends. And my friendships with these people have inspired me to be the kind of scholar that pursues knowledge and pursues good work for the good of my neighbors, for the love of God, for the love of place. You are going to get to hear today from some people who have changed my life and inspired me in their love and in those ways. So you're in for a treat. And obviously today at lunch we have Emmanuel Katongole coming, and I'm going to have Jonathan Tran, who just disappeared on me. Oh, there you are. Oh, you were sitting, I'm sorry. I was like, oh no. Jonathan Tran's going to come up and introduce him in a minute. But before we bring up Father Katongole, I want to introduce you to Jonathan Tran. Jonathan is a member of the Honors College faculty here at Baylor. And by the way, it is the Honors College that sponsored this lunch today. So thank you to the Honors College. Jonathan is the assistant or associate. He is the dean to faculty support at the Honors College and is a theologian here. He writes largely on race and racism and the ways in which we might think more holistically about how we address issues of racism. When I was going over his bio with him today, he said, hey, just tell him that I'm your homie. And I think maybe that's the best description for my friendship with Jonathan. Jonathan and I have known each other since our first year in seminary at Duke Divinity School. I can say I remember him from a very successful basketball season in which I knew him with blue hair. And then when we made our way to Baylor, Jonathan and his family invited us to live with them for a year. And so we did that. So I know all the tea on Dr. Tran, for those of you who are his students. But it is my great privilege to bring him up here to the stage to have him come introduce Emmanuel Katongole. And I will say it's a bit poignant because it's probably the last time I get to introduce you here at Baylor as my Baylor colleague. Dr. Tran will be leaving us at the end of May to go back home to Duke. So my friend, my colleague, my boss, Jonathan Tran.
Only in academia do we have introductions to the introductions. So, as we're in a literal ivory tower, I'm sure you all have noticed. It's a great honor and privilege to introduce and welcome Father Emmanuel Katongole to Baylor University. Father Katongole teaches at Notre Dame. If you are familiar with Baylor University, you know oftentimes that Baylor likes to describe itself as the Protestant Notre Dame. So In the Honors College, we like to call ourselves the Catholic Notre Dame. I once said that joke, Father Katongole. The great Jean Porter was in the audience, and later on she came up to me and she said, "I'm Jean Porter. I'm from Notre Dame, the Protestant Baylor." Let me say some official things about Professor Father Katongole, and then I'll say some unofficial things by way of introduction. Father Katongole, a Catholic priest ordained by the Archdiocese of Kampala, is a core faculty member of the Kroc Institute for International Peace Studies, where he's also professor of theology at Notre Dame. He previously served as associate professor of theology and world Christianity at Duke University, where he was the founding co-director of Duke Divinity's School for Reconciliation. He has written many books, including some of the most influential, not only in helping us think about the great promise of Africa, but also in deep philosophical questions around theology and theological method. His most recent book, Who Are My People? His most recent book is Who Are My People? Love, Violence, and Christianity in Sub-Saharan Africa by Notre Dame Press just a couple years ago. Unofficially, Father Katongole was my teacher, a mentor to a great many graduate students at Duke University. When I was there, Father Katongole and our good friend Chris Rice started the Center for Reconciliation, which decades later has had a profound foundational legacy all across the world in bringing people together who are often put on opposite sides of protracted, difficult conflicts, and bringing Christ as the center and very possibility of reconciliation. The extraordinary thing about Emmanuel Katongole is, and I think many of us who had the great privilege of being students of his, is that he embodies all of this with his character. His incredible generosity, his quickness to laugh, his graciousness, his kindness, his thoughtfulness, his intelligence that wears itself by way of a keen interest in who you are in your story, to me embodies what the promise of reconciliation can be, what the work of theology has to be, what things like the Academy have to answer to. And so it is a great privilege to introduce and welcome my teacher, Professor Father Katongole, to Baylor University.
Thank you, Jonathan, for the warm introduction. Very generous, excessive introduction. Yeah, could hardly recognize myself in some of the aspects that you are describing, but I'm so honored to be here. Thank you, Jeremy, and your team for inviting me to be here. And what an incredible opportunity for me to be here. First time at Baylor University, first time Waco, Texas. So I've been looking forward, greatly looking forward to being here. And thank you, you and your team, Grace, Keisha, Jenny, and Matthew, and all the friends that have welcomed me so warmly. I feel so much at home, actually, that I would have trouble going back to the Protestant Baylor from here. So I'm very, very grateful. And being here has been so energizing for me these last few days, especially because I really feel hopeful from the interactions, from the conversations, from the lectures that I've gone through, from the talks, really signs of hope in dealing with what Jane described as a wicked problem. We need hope, and we need it badly as we deal with these realities of poverty, of hunger, of environmental degradation, of injustice around the world. we may not be able to solve these problems, but we do need hope. And so I was feeling really, I'm feeling this in this room, the interactions, the energy, the friendships, and that hope is also connected with food that we're eating together. And we're talking about food. This is very dear to me. As an African, of course, because there is the great African proverb that says, unless you hear the mouth eating, you cannot hear the mouth crying. Unless you hear the mouth eating, you can't hear the mouth crying. It all has to begin with learning to eat together. And so we're eating together. And the cause that this conference is all about, this summit is all about hunger, about food, is really drawing us into that community. And thank you for all the work that you're doing in your communities here in Texas, different places in the US, just incredible and wonderful and rich signs of hope. What I would like to do this afternoon is to bring you a story from another continent, from the continent of Africa, and share with you a little bit of the work that I and my colleagues have been involved in these last few years through the Bethany Land Institute, addressing the problems of hunger, food insecurity, that is, of environmental degradation, and of poverty in this one place, working with the young people in Iruero. I want to share a little bit of that work to bring it here so that what you do here is really connected to a global context. It's not only here that these issues are urgent, but it's global. The realities that we are facing are global and connected. So I want to share a little bit of that work for two reasons. One, just to help you see that the struggles that we are having here are similar struggles that we are having on the continent of Africa, and see the interconnectedness. But two, I want to share that from a personal point of view. How did I get involved in this work? I, as a professor of theology at Notre Dame, I should be in the library working and developing and writing my books and scholarship. How did I get involved in the ground, literally in the dirt? I don't like that term dirt, what the Americans call the soil. But so just kind of share my own journey with the hope that perhaps you do recognize your own journey and part of my own journey as a way to encourage even the deeper work that you all are doing. So, Bethany Land Institute, working with the young people, addressing the challenges of food insecurity, environmental degradation, and poverty in rural Africa. How did it all begin for me? I can't say that it began when I was still at Duke University, being invited to lead the Center for Reconciliation. Working with Chris, as Jonathan told, to establish this center, grounded within this vision of God reconciling all things, and connecting with the practitioners around the world, publishing and writing books like Reconciling All Things, really pursuing this vision of God who reconciles all things to God's self. And I also have to blame it on this man, Norman Wisber, who wrote a title in those series of books called Making Peace with the Land, really showing how God loves the soil and how God's hand are soiled, making humans, planting a garden. Norman Wisber, as we hear this evening, has a way of making these rich theological notions, very, 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 very concrete. And really drawing my attention to the fact that actually issues like soil, food, are important theological topics that are connected to this dream of God reconciling the world. Everything being reconciled to God. But then as I traveled back and forth to Africa, to Uganda, my native home, that's not the picture that I found. The kind of picture that I saw going back home were pictures of environmental degradation, of poverty, as we see in the next slide. The village where I grew up to, that's a picture at the top left corner, that was actually next to my home. It was surrounded by a nice, beautiful forest. Now it has all been cut down. A number of reasons why deforestation is rampant in Africa. But you can see to the right, that's what has happened now to what used to be very beautiful gardens. Therefore increasing this reality of the food insecurity. So as I go back and forth, that's what I was encountering. Many times stopping to argue with the people that were cutting down the trees, that they shouldn't be doing that, getting angrier and angrier, but beginning also to see the connections, the connection with the other problems. A number of young people leaving the rural communities, going into the city because there are no opportunities in the rural communities. Ideology is that cities where life happens, civilization, money. But of course, they never go into the real city, but they get stuck in the slums. And so the reality of slums growing bigger and bigger in Africa. A number of unemployed people, really who have an existential question in their mind. Who am I? Why am I here? Why did even God create me? And how those young people that are uprooted but without any sense of belonging become easy targets for recruitment into the rebel militia forces. And so all these kind of problems really are being connected, beginning kind of to see those interconnectedness now, connecting it with the global warming, climate change. So I begin to see all that, giving rise to a notion that I've been using more and more, the notion of slow violence that is happening, and most of the time undetected, now and again erupting in these kind of violent outbursts. But underneath, there are different forms of violence that are kind of coming together in a way to shape a continent that seems to be really steeped in contradictions and these challenges. So I decided, because I was getting more and more angry as I tried to tell people we shouldn't cut down trees and so forth, but every time I would go back, I would find that it's more devastation. I decided to save myself because I was feeling so much anger. I said, you know what? I think I should channel this energy into something more constructive, just to save me from that anger. So I talked to a friend of mine, as you see from the next slide, Father Cornelius, whether he knew of a piece of land that I could buy and begin to plant trees. I wanted 10 acres of land to plant trees because I could see that the environment really needed that. And Cornelius talks to me and says, he's an educationalist. He says, well, you know, planting trees is not enough. You have also to do the education. He's teaching at the university, training teachers. He said, no, I'm really frustrated with the whole education system. We need to change. I'm thinking of building a school where we can teach young people how to value life, simple lifestyle in the rural communities. So we start talking. He finds a piece of land. We buy that piece of land. And then joined another friend, Father Tony. He says, well, you guys are dreamers. You are philosophers. You're talking about planting trees. Unless there is an economic dimension. You may plant all the trees that you want, but these young people are going to cut them down because they need to feed their families. So you have to bring together economics as well. So we started talking about the 3 E's. We invited Tony and said, why don't you join us? So he joined us. He brought some resources. We bought a little bit more land. And together we had 85 acres of land. And we started talking about the 3 E's, environment, education, economics, whatever we needed to do. Think about, okay, 10 acres for me, I was very serious. 10 acres, forest. And Cornelius says, a school. And Tony said, well, maybe we should also establish a commercial farm where we can teach young people how to grow food in a commercial way, and get money. So, 85 acres of land. We got that piece of land, and a number of young people. Africa is a predominantly younger continent. Many of them are unemployed, so we invited the young people onto the land, as our next slide here shows. As the land that we had bought, we're kind of sharing with them, okay, let's live together on this land. Let's work together on this land, grow food, and some of that we're going to sell. And Tony, who had been trained in business, he said we're going to teach them also business schools. And Cornelius was really interested in the education, the mindset change. So we started kind of working together around this notion of 3 E's. In the meantime, I continue to publish, to work, to do research on what is hope. What does hope look like? So I writing books, really trying to understand a continent like Africa that is so rich. How can that continent be at the same time a continent that is so steeped in these distressing conditions? What does hope concretely look like? So there are 2 things going on for me. One from this kind of practical, we have bought this land, but then from a scholarly theological point of view, I kind of continue to really think about hope. And so one might say that hope has always been, in a way, the dominant framework from which I try to do my scholarship, but also this kind of practical engagement. So I can say, but we didn't know what we wanted to do with this piece of land apart from saying, okay, we do 2 E's. We didn't know what kind of framework until 2015. When Pope Francis published this encyclical, Laudato Si, on the care for our common home. And Pope Francis there is making a number of claims, beautiful, beautiful claims. The power of that letter worldwide is just impressive. I see him making a number of claims, especially 3 claims for me that became very, very definitive. One, that the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor go together. But you cannot separate one from the other. We are not dealing only with an ecological problem, but also we are dealing with a social problem. These environmental issues affect the poor more adversely. You cannot deal with the one without dealing with the other. Secondly, he was making the claim, very, very important, that underlying these challenges, there is a spiritual problem, that we have forgotten what it means to belong to the earth. We treat the earth as a thing, as a storehouse of resources that we can just constantly mine. We forget that we are deeply connected to the earth. That is the underlying spiritual crisis. It's a crisis of belonging, and therefore of not knowing who we are. That unless that internal desert is dealt with, we shall continue to have these external deserts. So you've got to deal with that spiritual crisis of belonging, of our deep connectedness with the earth. Thirdly, and for me that was the most powerful paragraph 111, that to deal with these issues, you cannot just apply technological innovativeness, systems, policy, important as that might be. But you need to be having a distinctive way of thinking, an outlook, mindset, but also a spirituality and a lifestyle. And for that needs education programs. So I do remember when I first read the encyclical, I was actually in Milan at a conference. I couldn't sleep for that night because of jet lag, so I pulled out the encyclical and started reading it. I didn't put it down because of the way it is very, very, very persuasive. But then I kind of circled that and said, how does this look like? What does it look like? This mindset change, this spirituality, this lifestyle and education program. So a week later, I called my friend and said, hey, you know what? This thing that we have been trying to do is right here. We need to be that education program in a way that tries to kind of nurture that mindset change, that lifestyle, that spirituality. How are we going to do it? we didn't know, but yeah, let's try. Let's try, because there is no blueprint for that. So I started working on the kind of what would be entailed in that, and had used the notion of it has to be an integrated approach. So in the meantime, the land that we bought, 85 acres, of which we are very, very proud of, came under many, many land conflicts. I won't go into that story, but it's a story of many, many post-colonial societies. The land conflicts, the very same people that had sold us the land, turned around. I think just kind of briefly, I think it just kind of shows to the changing, in a way, the changing meaning of land within post-colonial Africa. So, we couldn't build on that land and things like that. That is where the diocese came in. And so what we are trying to do was very important. The diocese has a lot of land, the parishes have land, and the bishop said, no, we will give you land. So we signed an MOU with the Catholic Diocese of Kasana Luwero. Our next slide, I think we show here. Yeah, that's the signing of the MOU. We had 85 acres of land, and the diocese leased 400 acres of land. This is another lesson there, connected with the pain that we are going through and an incredible gift of 400 acres of land. This parish, very first parish north of Kampala, where there was also a natural forest that had been devastated. And so we find ourselves now at that piece of land in Kasana Luwero. And then we started working on really institutionalization. Okay, what does the curriculum look like? Hiring staff, policies, tax returns and things like all those things that I never even had imagined that will be my preoccupation as a theologian. There's no blueprint for this education program, so we try to cobble together people that we knew were working in education, others were working in agriculture, others were in formation. Say, suppose we are to come together with a new curriculum, how would it look like? And we are all reading together this document, Laudato Si. So really, experimentation, if you like. Improvisation is another good term of all this. And now we're thinking about building, and because the first parish, 1890, was still beautiful, standing, we started thinking about, okay, what is the nature of the building going to be? I had no idea that I would be thinking about buildings, but beginning to see that, this parish has been there since 1890, still stand. Whatever we need to do has to have institutional gravity and longevity, must have outlived us. So we are thinking, okay, not only just about a program of helping these young people, but we're thinking about institution. And I might say something a little more about the significance of institution. So are we doing that, buildings, curricula, and so forth, but also thinking about the campus, our campus. And really being committed that whatever we do in terms of building the campus has not only to reflect that sense of institutional beyond our time to the future, but has to in a way reflect the same beauty, the sense of beauty and excellency that we see in creation, for which God intended Africa. Now that brought us immediately into also challenges. Here we don't have money, we are trying to raise money, and then you want to do beautiful buildings and a beautiful campus? Come on, we're serving the poor. So a kind of really struggle for me, and insisting, no, it's a rural community, it's a poor community, but whatever we do there has to reflect that excellency and that beauty that is reflective of all God's children, wherever they are. Some of my friends, supporters, actually, I lost them because they thought maybe it was investing too much in a rural community that would go by even with a smaller gift. And then starting, really our program is in three main areas of our program, where we bring the young people. First of all, there is a school where when we bring the young people, it's called Mary's School. We train them in regenerative agriculture. We call it Mary, like Mary in the Bible, of Bethany, who is always sitting at the feet, kind of listening. Yes, I think we have a slide about Mary's School. We called our young people coming caretakers after Genesis chapter 2, till the land, care for it. But within that kind of spirit, bring young people. And then the bishop also decided that all the seminarians have to come and spend some time at BLI. The seminarians didn't like it because they're doing theology, masters, and so forth. Now we want us to live on the land with the poor people. They came kicking and screaming, but they came because the bishop. But after 4 months, they didn't want to go. Actually, something had happened, and something happens when we touch the ground. So that's Mary's School, training of caretakers, 2-year residential program. After the 2 years, the goal is that they go back to their communities and work with the communities in a way to kind of spread, to become the catalysts, the ambassadors of that new way of mindset change, spirituality, and lifestyle. You can say a little more. But that's one program. And with that also is connected the community outreach. Our caretaker spend time working with the community, inviting the community onto BLI, but also in the community in terms of creation care, regenerative agriculture, and so forth. Then we have a second program that is called Martha's Market, like the Martha of Bethany, who's always active, welcoming Jesus, serving the poor. That is the business school, if you like, of the program, teaching leadership, teaching marketing. Every caretaker that comes, given a plot of land, really teaching these simple money matters issues, saving, money out, money in, accountability, that many of these young people have not been exposed to. And sooner or later we realized, but where is the money going to come from? So we started a savings and credit organization, a SACCO as they call them, a microfinance. Now, by this time I'm out of my mind, starting a microfinance for the young people. Yeah, but they need money. So where are they going to get the money? So, and it's run by them. They save. They take out loans, the microfinance. So that whole Martha's Market really becoming the business school. And then there is the Lazarus Forest. That forest that had been deforested, conserving that, using that as a center for the whole ecological restoration and reforestation in the community, a goal of 1 million trees by the year 2050, so 33,000 trees every year. Really using the forest as the hub for that. So a lot of things have happened. It's been a little over 5 years that really the program started, but a number of things have happened. And maybe we can just kind of share a little bit, a short video of the kind of regeneration as we get into the topic of hope that has happened at BLI, beginning with the forest. So let's just kind of take a few minutes to see this little video and a little bit about the story before you see that. It was done by journalists from Kampala. they showed it on NTV, national television, and the Ministry of Uganda and the Environment got hold of this as they were preparing for COP29 to go to Azerbaijan. They didn't know what to present because they were supposed to give an account of what have they done since the Paris Agreement. They hadn't done much. So they saw that, they said, oh, this is what we are going to take. This is what Uganda is doing. To yeah. Okay, Gerard, if you could do.
In 2012, to commemorate their 25th year in priesthood, 3 friends, Father Emmanuel Katongole, Father Cornelius Sempala, and Father Anthony Zechareza, reflected on how best to express their gratitude to God for his blessings. They decided that planting a forest would be the perfect tribute, aligning with Pope Francis's second encyclical, Laudato Si. In the Laudato Si, Pope Francis laments environmental degradation and global warming, and calls on all people in the world to take swift and unified global action. At Nandele village, within Nyumba sub-county, a 95-acre deforested area owned by the Catholic Church under Kasanal Diocese was identified as the ideal site for their vision. Paul Semogerere, who was bishop at the time, but is now Archbishop of Kampala, supported the priest's vision to restore the neglected land.
Bishop Paul, when he got to know that they are answering the Pope's appeal, he got excited. He found the vision is so wonderful. So he said, yeah, why? I'm going to give you land. And then he directed them to different parishes to look for that piece of land. But when they came to Nandele here, they found this is the perfect land.
To bring their vision to fruition, in 2019, the priests established the Bethany Land Institute.
If you don't educate the people, they will cut the forest. You need to educate the people, to train the people, how important is the environment. And that's how the institute started.
Today, what was once a neglected and barren landscape has been reborn as the Lazarus Forest, named after the biblical Lazarus, who was resurrected by Jesus Christ. The forest has grown to cover 244 acres from the previous 95 acres.
After the guerrilla war, people began cutting trees from this forest for firewood and later for charcoal, leading to its destruction.
We
found the place when it had been heavily encroached on, heavily degraded.
That's why it's called Lazarus, the one who raised. It was a bush, but now it's becoming a forest.
Father Joseph Kakoza Nyanzi, the administrator of Bethany Land Institute, emphasizes that their work goes beyond protecting the remaining forest land. They are also reforesting areas that were previously encroached upon.
We have planted a lot of trees in this forest. When we came here, when I visited the forest, it was almost empty. You had some trees at the roadside, but inside it was empty. And it was really dry.
Their efforts include maintaining a tree nursery for indigenous species, which supports their planting activities within the forest and in the surrounding communities. The ambitious goal is to plant 1 million trees by 2050, not only within Lazarus Forest, but across the diocese.
In the 1 million tree, what we mean is not going to be only in Ruwero. It may include Nakaseke, Nakasongola.
So we have started what we call an outreach program. And this outreach program goes to the whole diocese. And the diocese has more than 21 parishes. So we go to different parishes.
So what we do, we raise the seedlings, some nitrogen-fixing trees like Lucina, like Caliandra, and then we give them to the farmers.
This campaign has already borne fruit, with the return of animal species such as multiple families of monkeys, a diverse range of birds and reptiles. Simon Nyombi, the coordinator of training program at Bethany Land Institute, says over 160 bird species now inhabit the forest.
In fact, the recent bird inventory we took, we found that this ecosystem currently has over 192 bird species. So it's a lot of wildlife coming back, both plants and animals. Of recent, we are able to find some snakes like cobras, tortoise, they are there in the swamp, you can find them. Edible rats, they are back in the swamp because there are less disturbances.
Additionally, the once dried up water stream now flows gently through the forest, emptying into River Manyundo. The rejuvenated stream provides water to 6 villages.
I am happy now to see now life has come back.
Yes, General, I think that could do. I didn't know that there was once upon a time a stream in this devastated forest. For me, every time I go back to BLI and walk and see that stream, I see it as really an incredible sign of hope. But there are so many other signs of hope that we can talk about. The caretakers, these young people that come to BLI without even a sense of confidence at all, now they live with an incredible amount of confidence. And I can talk about so many of them, but let me just kind of maybe share briefly the story of Alice. Alice came to BLI very reluctantly. A 19-year-old girl, her studies had been disrupted by COVID, living with an uncle in Kampala. Her mother in the village finds out that we are doing something at BLI, calls her and says, you come to BLI. She says no. Her mother goes to Kampala, fetches her, brings her to BLI, and she's just there. I say, I'm going to be here only 2 weeks. So after the second week, she goes to the director and says, I'm going home. And the director says, well, let me talk to your mother. Because the mother comes and says, stay for another week. And she says, okay, she's staying. But now she's just kind of resisting, she's just kind of waiting out because, as she said, she never touches the soil, the ground. That, in my mindset, is for people who have never gone to school. So she had finished high school. She's a young woman, her nails and everything. She says no. And then she stays for another week because of her mother. And then the mother says, well, maybe just one more week. And then she stays another more week. And they give her a plot of land. And she, during that 1 week, she starts planting cabbages and spinach. And then she began to see that actually she could make some money. Because then I asked her, so why did you eventually stay? She said, well, I realized that I could make actually some money and give some to my mother. And then she comes up with this statement. I don't know why she came up with this statement. And then I started thinking that perhaps I can save the world from here. 19-year-old girl, African girl, saving the world. Those are statements by people like from Baylor and Harvard. Those are the ones who save the world. Yeah? What a profound. Now she's graduated, she's back in her community, she's living next to a school, she's teaching the school nearby, and even is very significant, she talks to her church. Her mother is an elder in the Presbyterian church, and once a month, she goes and talks to the elders, and she said, I could never even think that I would be able to speak. Now she's talking to them, telling them the importance of caring for creation, goes around the neighborhood picking up plastic, and so the stories like this, in a way, kind of really show the incredible, in a way, signs of hope, an initiative like this. Let me conclude by just kind of 5 quick observations that what am I learning as I'm involved in this work. First of all, BLI motto is start small, start well, start now. Don't wait until you have figured out all the issues. Start. And Wendell Berry says the actual work of saving the planet will always be small, humble, and humbling. But as far as it is infused with love, utterly gratifying. Start small. 2 is a sense of journey. My own sense of journey. I didn't know that I would find myself at this time involved in this kind of moving back and forth so many times now in a year to Uganda, because I'm still founder and president of this organization, not only providing leadership on the ground, having formed a nonprofit here in the US, fundraising, and I never knew that I would find myself doing that. If you had asked me, but I'm thinking it is your own story as well. But as long as you start, I'm realizing that there are God's gifts that kind of come along the way. I couldn't have imagined. So this is just another story of the many gifts that are on the way. And He has taught me all these ways that not to be desperate. Yeah, just because I cannot solve the problem now, I'm going through challenges, and we have had a number of challenges, we still have a number of challenges, but always almost kind of expecting surprise, miracle, gift. Number 3, the significance of hope. Hope matters. And the hope that is connected to a place, to finding oneself in a place, and working out the intricacies, the details of a place, learning to live in a place. That's where hope happens. And I'm so grateful to Eric this morning for your incredible lecture about the difference between optimism and hope, how hope activates us. But the significance of place, of locality, staying long enough to create enemies in a place, to know how to negotiate the place. That is where the realities of, in a way, hope happen. In the end, hope is not solving. How I wish through this initiative or through the collaborative, you have solved the problem of hunger in Texas or in Waco or in the world. We're not solving. This is just a kind, but it's an indication a different life is possible. A different reality is possible. And for me, it's an indication that a different Africa is possible. And it's not just a dream out there, but it is right here in this particular place. So, I'm working my way through understanding hope in a very concrete way, which has been a gift for me from my earlier scholarly work on hope that was very academic, intellectual. I'm beginning to understand even deeper and better in a particular place. The whole question of the cultivation of hope that is connected with the cultivation of place. Number 4, the underlying spiritual crisis. Yes, we are helping the young people get a deeper sense of connectedness to the land, reforestation, the dynamics of regenerative agriculture that we are using. All that is going on, but I realize that it is actually an opportunity to work out that deep spiritual alienation that many of us feel with the land, with the earth. As Pope Francis says, every human life is grounded in 3 relationships. Grounded in 3 relationships. Again, grounded. Relationship with God, relationship with one another, community, and relationship with the earth. If any of those is disrupted, all the rest suffer. There is no way that one of these can be built if the others are also not built. Because that sublime communion, that kind of sense of sublime communion. But that begins with the deep sense of who we are as created by God and as human beings, a sense of identity. Many of the young people that we're working with are coming from very disturbed backgrounds and But over the time as they're working the land and so forth, what I see is a sense of a new identity emerging even for these young people. I think somehow they are rebuilding those relationships with God, with one another, and with the earth. I find that working at that spiritual, deep spiritual level. Very, very, very important. And finally, the whole question of institutions. How institutions matter. This for me was a new discovery in a way. I used to write about institutions, but from a theoretical point of view, politics, institution of politics, and so forth. But working at this level to build institutions, boy, how daunting that is. As I said, policies, buildings, it not only takes more time, it takes more money. It's one thing for me, Emmanuel, coming from Africa, coming to you and say, hey, you know what? We need $500,000 US. He said, are you crazy? You're from Africa. If I give you 3,000, that should be enough to feed so many poor people. And I said, thank you very much, but we need more, because we are not just feeding the poor, we are trying to build the poor in order that they can get their own agency. And that requires institutions that pass on the wisdom of today into the future. Without institutions, in a way, all we shall be doing is kind of feeding the poor. So important as it is, don't take me wrong, that we need to do that. But how, in the process also, we build new institutions that help the poor gain a sense of who they are, created by God, in God's image. More and more, I've been using this story, that it is good, very, very good, to help a poor person, an elderly person, young child, to cross the bridge, to cross the river. It is very, very important. An act of charity. But it is even a deeper form of charity to build a bridge, so that not only this child, but future children will walk across the bridge. Now, that's a daunting task. that's what I'm realizing. But I never really thought about this in a way that I'm thinking about it as I'm involved in that. But this is all to say that for a place for me like Bethany Land Institute has given me a very concrete ground for hope in what we are able to realize, or God is able to realize in us and through us. And for this, I'm very grateful. And I'm very grateful to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Katongole. It's a great privilege to continue to be your student. I don't know about you, but I learned a good bit today. Start now, start small, do it well. The cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are the same cry. And one lesson that I wish my children were here to hear: listen to your mother.